little bits of knowledge just help make our life easier. Today, I want to talk about our 24-hour clock, our circadian rhythms. That's a sleep-wake cycle that goes on throughout the day. And it's not only about just sleep and wake, it's about physical, mental, and behavioral changes that follows this 24-hour cycle. And the cycles are about metabolic processes such as the breakdown of glycogen, fat, proteins, and that affects our physical and mental attitudes. Also affects cortisol secretion. That's regulated by circadian rhythm. So, of course, that manages our stress. At one time, I worked in a plant physiology lab. It was just so interesting. I worked for a lovely, intelligent, kind professor. We studied circadian rhythms. And along with circadian rhythms, there's the daily rhythms, there's hourly, there's rhythms by the minute, and even seconds. And we were looking at enzymes in plants after we applied certain substances to the plants at different times of the day, so we could actually see what was going on in the plants and how they were affected by this same thing being applied to them at different times of the day. So these cycles, I've learned, are just really important, and they just keep going round and round, or maybe think of them as being in a spiral. What happens when our circadian rhythms are out of whack? We can get sleep disturbances, digestive issues like bloat, cramps, changes in bowel movements. There's mood swings, irritable, anxious, depression, metabolic changes like blood sugars, insulin sensitivity, cardiovascular disease too, heart attacks and strokes. It affects how flexible or rigid some of our structures are. There's also a cancer risk. And I mentioned insulin sensitivity. Related to that is leptin resistance. And if you're insulin resistant, you'll already be leptin resistant because leptin will influence insulin. Leptin can also control thyroid hormones and collectively all the sex hormones. So you can imagine it has a big influence on what we weigh. Leptin is a circadian hormone. Dr. Sarah Pugh or Dr. Jack Cruz, they had a really simplified description. Leptin is like an energy accountant. It measures how much energy we have. And this energy accountant reports to the hypothalamus every night, like the CEO, right? Tells how much it has to spend the next day on energy. And then we get modulated to our appetite and metabolism for the next day, depending on what that little report is. So what we do as far as eating regularly or what time we get up and that sort of thing affects that report. Leptin's found under our skin. It's in body fat. It's like a solar panel. And the leptin can measure how much energy we get from sunlight. And sunlight makes ATP for free without food, and it gets the mitochondria all active. And mitochondria are our little cell engines. And as we get older, we lose some of these mitochondria, which is why we don't feel we have as much energy. So if we don't get the sun, then our body wants more energy and it'll want it from food. Earthing is another thing. We can draw electrons from the earth, and electrons don't produce a current, but they help with our electric field. And the more we have, the less inflammation we have. You've heard me say before, we're like big batteries. We need sunlight and grounding. We're 99% water, and the sunlight and the grounding just helps charge up our big water battery. So simply, leptin resistance is just a lack of energy in the body because we're leaking it or losing electrons. So if we drink alcohol, that can steal electrons. And also fluoride in our water, chemicals, fragrances. Read your labels. See what you're doing to diminish your stability. Food, that's a timekeeper that influences circadian rhythm. So if we're missing breakfast or if we eat way late in the evening, it messes with our insulin and that disturbs that little leptin report. So if you think of it, circadian rhythm is all about harmony and doing little things to help yourself each day keep a healthy, beautiful rhythm going. Mitochondria basically want electrons and protons, and we can get that from our food for energy and then other ways too. Melatonin, it helps split the water. You need to be in the sun because it works through the skin. Your gut biome, if that's happy, it'll make hydrogen for you. Grounding, the negative electrons come up from the earth. Sun gazing, you allow photons in at bladder 1, and that it gives you your photons, and it times yourself in the morning. If you're up at sunrise, it helps reset your clock. So get up at sunrise, gaze at the sun a little bit. I have a video out on sun gazing, one on earthing. It'll help reset your circadian daily rhythm. And if you have thyroid or hormone issues, you'll definitely want to be checking out that sunrise. Our bodies are such miracles. And if we just give it a little help and do what you can to nourish all these different systems that we have, like do the sunlight, do grounding, food at appropriate intervals. And that's a good way, easy way, simple things for us to do to care for body, mind, spirit.